Well, hi everybody. I'm Adam. I work for CarePortal. I actually have a slide here. If you didn't sign in to the event online already, this QR code will actually capture your email address. That sheet of paper back there is probably sufficient as well, but this just means I can send you this presentation once we're done, and when I'm sending out my follow-up email, I can send you everything that we talk about today. That way you don't have to try and remember everything, and you don't lose information, but hopefully the slides help jog your memory and keep us going. I'm notoriously a walker. Jessica's already introduced herself. So thank you, Jessica. Thank you to the White County Prevention and Recovery Coalition for inviting me out here and for helping to push forward this initiative to serve our local children and families who are experiencing crisis. We really appreciate everything that you all are doing and helping us get here. So this is me. I'm Adam Johnson. I'm the regional manager for Mid-South or Central South Tennessee. That means, like Marshall County, down to Lincoln County, all the way over to Hamilton County. I am going to be your primary point of contact for CarePortal in those counties and in this area. So this is my contact information. If you need anything at all, you can feel free to call or text me at that number or shoot me an email, and we will connect, and I'll make sure that all your questions get answered. So let's talk about the why. Why am I here? Why are you here? Why are any of us in this room right now? So I'm sure each person in here could answer that a little bit differently. You each have a why this matters to you, why you think the vulnerable child space is calling to you, and why you want to step into it to serve the most vulnerable in our community. For me, my why starts at birth. I was adopted out of the Tennessee child welfare system as an infant. I did not have any memorable experiences in the system. I was adopted very, very young. I think 2 weeks is all it took for me to be in a permanent placement, and then the process of adoption was already started and finished pretty quickly. But I don't have that same story for all of my siblings. So I'm one of 6 on my biological mother's side. I've recently met my siblings. About 3 years ago, I got connected with them. We've been building relationships since then. Every now and then I get a text message that says, hey, I haven't talked to you in a long time. And I'm like, yeah. And I didn't know that that's a thing that siblings do, is text and keep in communication with each other. But if I go a week without talking to them, they let me know it. So welcome to being a sibling. But their stories are a lot different than mine. I have an older brother. He aged out of the foster care system, ended up incarcerated. I have younger siblings, 3 sisters and a younger brother. My 3 sisters all spent time in and out of foster care, reunifying with our biological mother, and bouncing around a couple of times in kinship placements and then traditional foster care as well. My youngest sibling, my youngest brother, we call him the lucky one. He actually is the only one of us that spent his entire childhood with our biological mother and got to come up in a stable household without being disrupted. Now, I also got to be brought up in a stable household, but it was not my biological household. So my why starts way back then when 2 people who had no obligation to love me decided they wanted to bring a baby boy that didn't biologically belong to them into their home. They wanted to raise him up on their 93-acre farm as an only child. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds amazing. I was begging for brothers and sisters being an only child on a cattle farm, I promise. I needed help with those chores. But my parents really modeled to me what it looks like to step into the life of a vulnerable child and to love them when you have no obligation to. You're doing it out of the kindness of your heart to be a servant to that vulnerable child. I was able to grow up in a loving and stable home, but I realized quickly after getting involved in this space that my story is not the most common story. Really, the more common story is one of trauma, one of displacement, and one that results in years, if not a lifetime, of asking the question, why me? I asked that question, but I ask it for a different way. Why was I the lucky one? Why was I the fortunate one? And the Lord has been good enough to just reveal to me that it's so that I can minister to my brothers and sisters and also hopefully positively impact this space as I step back into it as an adult. So that is my why. If we went around the room and asked everybody their why, listen, we would be here till midnight and we would all cry. So to avoid that, we will move on with the presentation. But just keep your why in mind and at the front of your heart while we go through this presentation together. So officially, the organization is CarePortal. CarePortal is connecting care sharing technology that drives action for local kids and families in crisis. That's a lot of words. That means we help connect vulnerable children and their families to the resources of their community through relationships with local churches, businesses, and individuals. And I said local because we don't want this to be completely anonymous. A lot of it can be. Don't let the right hand know what the left hand's doing. But a lot of it is also going to be very personal, very real, very in your face, because the stuff is great. We want to give these families the stuff that they need. If a child doesn't have a pair of shoes, or if they are wearing shoes to school that have holes in them, we want to make sure that they get a pair of shoes that's adequate, that they can walk into school with and not worry about them falling apart, that they are comfortable, and that they are able to grow with these pair of shoes. But that is really just the Band-Aid on the problem. What's going to help solve this problem going forward is connection. So when we say care sharing, we're inviting people into the lives of these vulnerable families and the children so that they can sow into them, walk with them, and set them up for the most success going forward. So as we walk into the future with this family, they have not just mom or dad, or not just mom and dad, but they have a community of people wrapping around them to support them for continued impact in their lives. I don't know about y'all. I would not be standing here right now without the community that I have back home. My wife and I went through some very traumatic events in 2022. My parents were in a motorcycle accident. They both survived, but we had to move in with them. So at the drop of a hat, I woke up on a Friday morning to a phone call from a hospital in Knoxville telling me that my parents were in a motorcycle accident. I went to the hospital not knowing that was the last night I spent in that house. And we listed it, it sold, and then, just living an hour and a half away from the community that I had been built up in, the church family that I have. I was still traveling back and forth, still serving as the worship leader there, and it was a nightmare. Once my parents were able to be on their own and get to a point where I could just go back and visit once a month, we started the process of buying a house in this economy. I don't know if anybody's done that or bought a house recently. It is hard to do, and it's pretty terrifying. But our church community made it possible for us to buy a house near our church. I'm 5 minutes away from my church now. I'm an hour and a half away from my dad and the farm, and I'm still able to go back there, weekly and be with them. So that same level of relationship that I have with the people in my hometown and at my home church, we want to wrap every single family with that. I kind of always say it like this. I am not a resident of White County. So I live a little over an hour and a half away from here. If I were to get on the road right now when I leave and something happened to my car and I needed help getting home, I could pull out my phone, and I have a phone full of contacts that I could call. And I know that somebody or several somebodies would be willing to come and get me and drive me home. The people that we serve through this do not have even one contact most of the time in their phone that they could pick up and reliably call and know that that person would come to their aid if they were in trouble. So that's what we want to do. We want to fill their phone full of contacts of individuals who care about them, care about their children, and want to serve them well, want to love them like a community and a family should. So that is what CarePortal is. That's our heart and who we are. We are a part of the Every Child Tennessee initiative from the Governor's Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives. What this means is we have a contract with the state of Tennessee. So we're working closely with the Department of Children's Services and alongside Governor Bill Lee's Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives to help drive action and mobilize Tennesseans, giving them easy access points to where they can serve the most vulnerable in our community. CarePortal officially sits in this prevention space. We want to either help children stay with their biological families, keep them from ever entering foster care, or help make successful foster, kinship, or permanent adoption placements as quickly as possible whenever we can. So we want to support these families as children are either coming into their homes or as children are at risk of having to be removed from their homes, so that we can build communities around them and support them so that they are not in an already overburdened foster care system where the caseworkers do not need any more on their caseload. what we see is about 70% of the children that are removed from the care of their biological parents are removed for what we would consider to be preventable reasons. That means 70% of the kids that are in foster care right now in the United States don't have to be there because of abuse or neglect. They are there because poverty manifests itself to look like neglect. They're there because they had a shorter paycheck or because they had an unexpected expense come up and their power got shut off and the kids got off the school bus and walked into a dark house. Or because they couldn't afford to fix the washing machine at their home, so their kids walked into school wearing the same clothes 2 days in a row. So we don't want these children to have to be removed from the care of their biological parents when it's preventable, when we can step in and intervene. That way the Department of Children's Services in our state can actually function the way that they're supposed to, not overwhelmed, not overburdened, but really stepping into these situations where kids are being neglected or abused. And they can step in and do what their job is actually intended for instead of being overwhelmed, overburdened, and having 35 open cases. And that's probably a conservative number. I bet there's some DCS caseworkers with many, many open cases. The other legs of this stool of the Every Child Tennessee initiative are recruitment, retention, and transition. Our recruitment partner is Tennessee Kids Belong. So they're helping us to recruit foster families to come into our network so that we can have more open and available foster homes. They also help create RAP teams in churches to help these foster families retain after that first year, because you all probably have heard once a family fosters children after the first year, they close their home. That's about 50% of the families who decide to foster will close their home after the first year of fostering. And it's because it's lonely work, it's hard work, and I don't think we always paint the most accurate and adequate picture of what that looks like. And everybody has kind of a butterfly idea of what it looks like, but they need to know what the realness is, and they need to have a community to support them as well. Our retention partner is an organization that is working directly with the governor's office as a technology platform. That one's called Promise Serves. And then our transition, we actually have Belmont University running a study for us about what it looks like when children age out of the foster care system. And so we're piloting an initiative in Knoxville right now. They could all tell you a lot more about that, and you can find that information on Every Child Tennessee's website. But we're seeing a lot of the kids who are aging out of foster care get missed. That is probably the most missed demographic, because what happens is they turn 18, their DCS file officially closes, they are offered extensions of foster care, but most of the time they say, I'm done with people telling me what to do and where to go, and I'm going to figure this out on my own. The high school dropout rate is very high for children who turn 18 while they're in the foster care system. And so our transition area, we've realized, is an area of lack in Tennessee. So we are piloting some research projects so that we can discover what does it look like to care for these children well as they're coming out of foster care, turning 18. That's my brother's story. He turned 18, aged out of foster care, ended up incarcerated, ended up in the prison system. And so that's near and dear to my heart. So I hope you guys look more into that. Go to Every Child Tennessee, and you will be able to find a lot of that. So I have this slide in here. We usually, at our active community gatherings for CarePortal, we will go around and have people share stories of impact where maybe they've gone on a CarePortal connection, or maybe they've gone and witnessed something, an act of kindness, or been able to get invited into a family space and serve them, and they get to share the stories. I realize this is the first time that I've met with this group, so I just brought a story, and I would like to share it with you guys. My church got involved with CarePortal kind of on the ground level. A long time ago, I went to an event called The Send in Kansas City. My wife and I went there for our anniversary. While we were there, a gentleman by the name of Adrian Lewis came up and he spoke about a technology platform called CarePortal. And he said that it was a way to help vulnerable kids. Me being a former vulnerable kid and having a family that loved me well, I said, we could do that. Now, my church started an initiative about 9 years ago. We started doing something called Foster Family Christmas. We open it up to our community so that no kid goes without Christmas presents on Christmas. So every December, we will have families come into our church. We play games with them. We have a big feast with them, and then we award prizes to all the families in the form of a basket full of laundry supplies, or a movie night basket, or a game night basket. And we make sure that everybody goes home a winner, and all the kids go home with a big sack full of toys to put under the tree and wait to open on Christmas Day. So our church was already involved in the foster care space. It made sense to me to use this technology platform to reach the unreached in our community, to see where are we missing these vulnerable kids. So I signed our church up for CarePortal. More accurately, my wife signed our church up for CarePortal. And then she told me that she signed our church up for CarePortal after we heard Adrian talk about it. I started looking at CarePortal every day and waiting for something to happen. And there wasn't a lot of movement yet. It was very early. I think we were the 6th church in Tennessee to sign up for CarePortal. And most of everything was happening in Davidson County and Nashville. Because that's where they piloted, and they had an agency bring them there, and they were doing all the work mainly in Davidson County. I live in Marshall County, so a little bit south, a little bit east, and we were not seeing a ton of requests coming through. So I was bugging the guy who ran CarePortal for the state. His name's also Adam. And so eventually, I guess I bugged him enough that he offered me a job. And he said, hey, help me build CarePortal out across Middle Tennessee. So I did. I jumped on board and I started working for them as well as working for my church. So I was doing both bivocational, still working for CarePortal, still working for my church. And I love it. God's just really opened a door for me to be able to do both things, and I feel like they're both going really well. I'm waiting on somebody to tell me different. So the other guy who worked for CarePortal, his name was also Adam. So it used to be really easy. You just picked up the phone and called Adam with CarePortal, and you got where you needed to go. Super easy. Now our team has grown to a team of 9. The Lord has been so gracious in blessing us with the resources and abilities and a contract with the state. So now DCS caseworkers can actually use CarePortal. It's in Edison. I don't know what that means. I know that they can go on there and have continued education credit and get trained on CarePortal. So super cool, super amazing that this is now spanning to the point where all 95 counties could have caseworkers who are CarePortal trained and ready to put requests in on the platform. This is what Tennessee looks like. I pulled these numbers at 8:30 this morning. They may have changed since then. You can always go to careportal.org, look at our interactive map, and you can see these numbers in real time. They count up whenever requests are closed on the platform. And so I'm sure some requests have closed today. This slide has a few mistakes in it, and there was a mistake on the governor's slide earlier. I was just going to blame the state for that, but I can't blame the state for this one. This was all me. This is my bad on this slide. So these are our new regions as they're identified. Let's take a look at the impact before we go into the regions. Our impact so far, we've served 9,108 children through CarePortal in Tennessee with an economic impact of just under $5.3 million. We have 467 response teams that are active. I had a church sign up earlier today at a meeting that I was in, so that number should say 468. Nationally, that equates to 510,029 children served with an economic impact of $193,863,788, give or take, or $1 or $2, because it's probably updated since then, and these are the national stats. And we have 8,750 response teams nationwide and with 3 Canadian provinces. Don't ask me which Canadian provinces. I don't know. British Columbia is one of them. But this is what it looks like in Tennessee and across our state. In the West, we have Badon Smith and Joshua Conley. They are our CarePortal representatives over in that green part, so that's Memphis, and up and a little east, but not too far east. Midwest, we have Julie Hogue, who's been working with CarePortal for a long time. First, she was working with us through an implementing partner. Now she's an official part of our CarePortal team here in Tennessee. Central North is Cam Robinson. He's my counterpart, so if I'm ever on vacation or have to take leave, he's probably the one that will be answering your phone calls. Central South is me. I have the UT Orange region of Tennessee, and that is by design. I'm just going to let you know right now. And in the East, we have Katie Cook. That's that blue region there. She is the newest member of our team, and she is working tirelessly out there to build out Knox County and surrounding. And then in the Northeast, we have Smile Foster Closet. I know you can't see it on there, but they are what we call an implementing partner. So Smile Foster Closet is an agency run by someone named Rachel Lawson, who is just crushing it in that purple region up in the Northeast. So they have access to CarePortal to be able to train and recruit churches, and they're using it as their own personal technology platform. So they're an implementing partner. Their agency is using CarePortal to the scale that they can actually bring churches in. So that's what our regions look like. Those are the folks who have joined our team ever since we got the contract with the state of Tennessee. And there's one individual who makes this whole thing run and kind of directs us. His name's Paul Van Woudenberg. He is an amazing individual. He spent 2 years full-time volunteering for the DCS office in Murray County. That's actually how I met Paul. I met him at a cookout. He is Dutch. He's from the Netherlands. So he really stood out to me because he was grilling at Henry Horton State Park in Chapel Hill, Tennessee, for some caseworkers. And I walked by and said hi to him, and he says hi back with an accent. And I was like, okay, why in the world are you at Henry Horton State Park in Chapel Hill, Tennessee? So we struck up a conversation. Paul and I started working together. He didn't receive a paycheck for 2 years. When I say he was a full-time volunteer, he, his wife, their 2 children, full-time served the DCS office in Murray County, created a nonprofit called Connect South Central, started logging requests for DCS caseworkers before we had a contract with the state on behalf of their children. After the family said, yes, we're comfortable with you sharing our requests and having people reach out who have resources for us. He was the kind of the gasoline in the tank. He started working with CarePortal as an implementing partner at his nonprofit, and now he runs the state. So I knew my boss before he was my boss. We've been really close friends ever since we met because we are so aligned in vision and purpose. And if you ever get a call from a man with a Dutch accent who says he's from CarePortal, you're not being hacked or scammed. He's one of the good guys, okay? He's one of us. So Paul Van Woudenberg may be reaching out at any point or another if I'm on leave or if me and Cam are out, which probably will never happen. This is what White County looks like. So you heard some of the numbers earlier from Jessica. This is what we're looking at from the CarePortal perspective. Right now there are 43 active churches in White County, but if you wait around about 5 minutes, somebody's going to plant one. Am I right? There are churches getting planted all the time. But according to Google, there are 43 active churches in White County. We have about 65 to 80 children at any given time in foster care. You know what that means? That means if every single church in White County said, hey, we want to support 2 foster kids, there wouldn't be enough kids to go around. Churches would have to fight over who gets to serve these kids. Instead of vulnerable people fighting for resources, churches would be fighting to give resources to these families. That's a better kind of competition, in my opinion. Right? So what we do is we get information out there, we invite people in to serve, and what I've seen is when churches and organizations get this information in front of them, they want to do something about this. They want to get involved. It's all about getting this information out there. And I'm going to tell you something. We're in the South, and there are so many good things that are true because we're in the South, but there are a few things that are a little difficult to navigate. One of those things is, if I don't know you and I don't know your daddy, I'm probably not going to sit down with you and entertain a business proposition because this is the South, right? And I'm from a very rural community in Watertown, Tennessee. If you've never heard of it, don't worry, most people have not. It's in Wilson County, just kind of on the corner of Wilson and Cannon County. And in my opinion, it is the last Mayberry. In fact, Watertown just got the 90s. I don't know if you guys knew that, but Watertown's in the 90s now. They're freaking out about Y2K, so pray for them, but they're going to be okay. I grew up on a cattle farm out there. I didn't even see a computer until I was like 18 years old. And God has me working for a technology company. That's some cosmic humor right there. So if I can use CarePortal, anybody can use CarePortal. I promise you, it's so user-friendly. It's that easy. What we're looking for in White County are 5 churches to say, yes, we are ready to serve vulnerable kids through CarePortal. When a church says yes, we train them. Their account gets activated. They determine, do we want to be a connecting church or a responding church? A responding church can give physical items or funding to the families, but they will never have the opportunity to go and meet with the families. A connecting church can meet with families if the families are open to a connection face-to-face. So your church would determine, do we want to be a connecting church or a responding church? Once we have 5 churches that say yes, that means we can go back to the Department of Children's Services and say, hey, we are ready for you guys to log requests. We've got churches ready to meet these requests as they come in. When you look at the bottom and it says 13 for full activation, that means if we had 13 of these 43 churches say yes to CarePortal and say, yes, we want to see these needs coming through, then we could activate DCS, the schools, the crisis pregnancy centers, independent adoption agencies, daycares that serve kids, anybody in White County virtually that wants to use CarePortal to put needs out there to serve vulnerable kids could do that if we had 13 of your 43 churches say, yes, we're ready to do this. So that's our numbers. I'm more of a stories guy, but those are my numbers slides for my numbers people in the room. My wife's a numbers person, so always like to share the numbers as well. This is how it works. This is probably why everybody's in this room right now. CarePortal has a 4-step process to serving every family that comes through. The first step is uncovering needs. Families cannot use CarePortal on their own. They can't just log into a profile and say, we need XYZ, we need groceries, we need power bill paid. Families can't do that on their own behalf. It's always a trained, child-serving professional who uses CarePortal. So every request that comes through has been vetted. When they input the requests on CarePortal, they are not putting any personal identifying information. So there's no PII ever shared on CarePortal. You could go to a CarePortal request right now, copy and paste it onto your Facebook page and share it with the world because that family's information is not in it. The caseworker's information is not in it. People are just invited to give. And they will not be connected with that family unless they've gone through a training process, have been vetted, and are ready to serve and meet the families on behalf of their local response team. So step 1 is uncovering needs. Every need that comes through CarePortal has been vetted by a child-serving professional. Right now that looks like DCS, someone from the department, going into a home, doing an investigation and determining what will set this family up for success going forward. What will prevent us from having to remove these children from the care of this house. That's what's getting logged on CarePortal right now. Step 2 is submitting needs. So in the needs submission portion, they get to share a story. You know, maybe it's a story that we have a single mother with 2 children in the home, 2 boys, 8 and 4. These boys need a twin over twin bunk bed in order to make a successful placement for this single mother's house. So that need gets typed out, sent out to CarePortal, shared with every single church, business, and individual who has signed up and said, we are ready to serve these kids. They'll get an email. If you download the app on your phone, you'll get a notification. It looks like a text message popping up on your phone. So it's a push notification that you can click from your home screen, and it takes you right into the CarePortal app, gives you a real-time opportunity to respond. So as soon as the caseworker puts this request in, it's live, and you will get a notification. It's all in real time. This doesn't sit and go through this big, long process. There are some approval processes internally that DCS goes through before these ever make it out. But as soon as that submit button is hit, it comes right to your screen. Once it comes to your screen, you're given 3 options for serving on this request. Now, I guess 4, because the first option is there's never any obligation to serve on any request that comes through CarePortal. If something comes across your screen and you're thinking, man, I can't serve on that one, that's okay. There's no obligation ever. We're not sitting there thinking, man, they haven't met a request, this week. We better call them. That's not us. That's not who we are. We just want to give people the opportunity, and you choose what to do from there. The first option on the platform is to pray over the request. So you can actually click the prayer button, commit to praying over the request. You can type out an encouraging message or a prayer to send to the caseworker for them to share with the family, or it could be a prayer for the caseworker. Because I'm going to tell you what, I've never met more people with secondhand trauma than I have sitting in the DCS office, okay? And I promise you that's a real thing, right? They're seeing these families in vulnerable positions day in and day out. They're getting chastised in the media. They're getting people thinking that all they want to do is come and take their kids away. Can I tell you guys something? DCS does not need any more kids in custody. They're not going and looking for kids to take into custody. They're trying to keep families together. And they're really on the front lines of all this. So if you want to send a prayer to a caseworker, that's one of the most powerful things you can do to encourage them because the turnover rate is high with caseworkers. I'm going to tell you right now. They need support just as much as these vulnerable children and families do. The second thing you can do to connect on CarePortal is fund a request. Fund is exactly what it sounds like. It means you pull out your debit card and you type in the information and you give a certain amount of money, whether that's $25 or $150 toward this bunk bed, this twin over twin bunk bed. Whether it's 25 to 100, you determine how much you give to the request, and that money is ported onto a virtual bank that only exists on that request. If you think, hey, I don't have mattresses, but I have a bunk bed frame in my garage, I've been trying to get rid of it. then you can do this third option, which is to provide for the needs that are being requested. We see this a lot with things like cribs, car seats, beds when it's appropriate. Some people have these items and want to provide, or some people just want to go shopping and pick out something specific for this family. So they'll say, we'll provide it, just tell us exactly what these kids like. Do they like Paw Patrol? Do they like Captain America? What are we dealing with? Because we want to provide them with exactly what they want. So that provide option is a little more personal, and you have to go through a secondary process. When you fund something through CarePortal, we give you a tax-deductible receipt. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. The church is never responsible for giving a receipt for a financial donation through CarePortal. The only time the church would need to write a tax-deductible receipt is if they are receiving a physical item that they're going to deliver to the family, and that person who donated the physical item wants a receipt. We ask that the church writes that because our home office is in Kansas City, and we don't have the bandwidth to send somebody from Kansas City out here to evaluate that item every time that someone wants to donate. So any financial gift that's given into CarePortal, you will get an automatic giving statement. So what happens when all of this request is met? Maybe we have a twin over twin bunk bed request, so that's mattresses, bunk bed frame, sheets, pillows, comforters, maybe a stuffed animal to go with it. When we have that full request in the platform and we've got 10 different people from different churches giving to this request, how do we get everything into one place? So that's where a connecting church would come in. So we train connecting churches on how to make a successful connection with families by going through a real scenario, like a poverty scenario. We want to make sure that they understand the culture of poverty and that sometimes it's generational, and you're going to see some stuff going into some of these places, okay? And it's real. And so we want to prepare our connecting churches for that. We also want to make sure that they have realistic expectations of what follow-up looks like after they deliver the goods to the family and make the connection. So a connecting church who's gone through the training and individuals from the church who have gone through the church's background check and been qualified by that organization to go and meet with the families will collect all of the items or funding in one place. So the items, really easy to collect. If it's let's say Ashley Furniture Home Store wants to give a bed, or mattress to these kids, then the church coordinates with the champion account on Ashley Furniture Home Store via email, and they're able to go and pick up those resources to bring to the family. If it's financial resources, we equip every church with what we call a CarePortal debit card. This card is issued to the church. You can have as many or as few of them as you want. I recommend having 2. One for your wallet and one that people could sign in or sign out. I don't recommend having any more than 2. Just to keep accountability. Treat it like you would a church credit card. And if it's a bigger church and a lot more people on staff, maybe it works differently for you. For our church, we have 2 CarePortal cards. The money gets downloaded onto your CarePortal card whenever you click the button on the request that says take the lead. That makes you the church, that you become the point of contact for that family. Now, you can't go to an ATM with the CarePortal debit card. You can't use it at an ATM. It will not work. You can't get a cashier's check or a money order with the CarePortal debit card. You have to spend it at a store, and you have to get items with the CarePortal debit card. There are safeguards in place so that we don't become enablers. We stay in this lane of servants and of resource providers. We never want to be enablers. So we've created some safeguards. Now, with that, there is additional training, and you're going to want to be smart as church leaders on who has access to this card, because once you pick up the resources from a request, every card that's issued to your church has access to those funds. It's like a shared line of credit. It all exists on your CarePortal debit card account now. So you become the church that's at the point of care. There are safeguards that every time a church picks up money from a request, I get an email, that church gets an email, and the caseworker who put the request in gets an email. So 3 of us see when that church has picked up that money. So we know where the money went. And it's all tracked through CarePortal. It's on your church's dashboard that gets created when you create an account, and it stays on my dashboard as regional manager and on the DCS caseworkers' dashboard when they log in. Only a trained response team can take the lead, claim resources, coordinate with agencies to meet a need, and meet directly with families. So these aren't random people who just get access to all of the families that are being served. None of the information is shared through CarePortal. So how does the response team get the information of the family? They get it from the caseworker after the family says, yes, we're comfortable meeting with a local church or local response team. We're comfortable with people coming to our house. We're comfortable going to their church. Maybe they're not comfortable with either. They want to meet at the DCS office or in the guidance counselor's office at the school. Maybe they want to meet at a restaurant, someplace public and local. Maybe it's a grocery request. Listen, grocery requests used to be my least favorite request because I had an idea of how things were supposed to work on CarePortal, and I've learned. So I'm going to give you guys some knowledge. You don't have to go and buy groceries and take them to their home. You can actually meet people at the grocery store. I know, revolutionary. You guys probably would have got that a lot faster than I did. But I meet people at the grocery store now because I hate shopping for people. I like shopping for me, don't like shopping for anybody else. I don't know what they like. I don't know what their kids like. I don't know what they eat. If I can meet them at the store and they can push the buggy around, fill their own cart, and let me swipe the card at the end, that's great. And I get to spend 45 minutes to an hour in a store talking with these people and loving on them, breaking down walls and building relationship. So that's what it looks like to be a connecting church on the platform. That's kind of the process of CarePortal from start to finish, whether it's the caseworker who puts the need in or the church response team or business that responds and provides the items. Connection changes everything. CarePortal is a tool to, yes, get people access to the resources they need, but more than that, get them access to the relationships that they crave and desire and that are going to set them up for success going forward. A pair of shoes is not just a pair of shoes. A bed's not just a bed. It's all an opportunity to serve our community better, to get into a place where we can come alongside these families, these vulnerable children, and help them from becoming a statistic. I'm going to share this last thing with you all. You may be aware of this statistic, you may not. But these are national statistics, and when you break them down by the state level, it correlates pretty well with our state of Tennessee. 50% of our homeless neighbors spent time in the foster care system. 65% of girls and young women who are rescued out of sex trafficking raids spent time in the foster care system. And 75% of people in prison right now spent time in foster care. We've identified this as our ground zero. If we can encounter the vulnerable child now, we can make a catalyst for social change across all of these different demographics. This is where it starts. It starts with the vulnerable child. And we are inviting people into this space to serve alongside of us. And we don't have any expectation. We just want to open this up and have you guys ready to see the requests as they come through. If you have any questions or if you want some more information, this QR code will allow you to sign up as a church, a champion, or a requesting agency. When it says champion on there, that means a business, right? When it says a church, that's what it sounds like. A requesting agency, those are the people who put requests into CarePortal, and that's a little bit different process. You can also, on this QR code, sign up as an individual in the community. So maybe you're not from a church, maybe you don't represent a business, and you're just here as an individual, and you want to see these requests come through. You can't connect directly with families, but you can still give financially and physical items to these requests as they come in as an individual. So everybody's welcome on CarePortal. We do have a strict training process that we go through before you connect with anyone, but everyone can use CarePortal. So that is the end of my presentation. That's everything that I have to say. I want to hear from you all. What's important to you, and how can I answer your questions? Yes?
Can you give us some stories of requests that you have seen on CarePortal and how it impacted?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was supposed to. Yeah, okay. All right, okay. I'll hold the microphone. My church personally got involved with a family. This is the most impactful story for me. So my wife and I served on this request together. I always take my wife with me on requests because I'm a 6-foot-tall bearded guy showing up sometimes, most of the time at a single mother's home, And if I knock on the door and they look through the peephole and they know they've already had people coming to their house poking and prodding around, they may not open the door for me. But my wife has the sweetest face and the biggest blue eyes you've ever seen. And if she knocks on the door, they're going to open the door for her because she looks like she's bringing Girl Scout cookies or something. So we always have my wife, I always have my wife come with me on requests. Sometimes I have my son come along if I need help heavy lifting things. So this specific story happened about 3 years ago. We got a request into the CarePortal platform for a single mother of 6 kids. These kids were at risk of being removed from the care of their mother because they were showing up at school with the same clothes on multiple days in a row. What happened when the caseworker went and investigated, so the school is a mandated reporter, they had to call this in. Kids are being neglected, you got to call it in. It appears like it's neglect. There's you become an accomplice at that point if you don't call it in. So the school has to call this in. It escalates to the point where a DCS caseworker comes to that house, CPS, and they come in and they investigate. They determine the cause of the children wearing the same clothes every day is a broken washing machine, right? I don't know if you guys understand that when a child comes into state's custody, it costs the state in taxpayer dollars about $2,500 a month. That's actually a conservative number. It may be even more than that when you take into account the amount of paperwork, the amount of manpower it takes, the caseworkers who work overtime to sit in the office with them until somebody comes and picks them up and says, we will be respite or we will be foster parents. It's a lot. It costs about $2,500 a month for that child to sit in state's custody. A washing machine costs a lot less than $2,500, right? And I'm going to tell you, my little county, Marshall County, was not equipped, was not ready for 6 kids to enter into our foster care system. We have 5 foster homes in Marshall County, last time I checked, and they are all full. These kids would not have just been brought into foster care and removed from the care of their mother, removed from their home, removed from their school. They would have been removed from their county. They would have had no connections with their friends. And all 6 of these kids would probably have been removed from each other. So they don't even get to go to the same home. Because I don't know of a single home in Tennessee that's ready for 6 kids. I don't. These kids were going to be displaced, and their likelihood of graduating high school was going to plummet. All because of a washing machine. My church sees that request come through on CarePortal. I didn't have a washing machine to give the family, but I had a buddy who lived in Columbia at the time who was redoing his laundry room, and he had his washer and dryer for sale on Facebook Marketplace. And I only knew that because I'm friends with him, and I saw it pop up on my feed. So I call him, and I'm like, hey, do you still have that washing machine and that dryer for sale? He goes, Adam, if you need a washing machine and a dryer, you can have it. And I was like, it's not for me. I don't need it, but I will take it. And he was like, okay, what are you talking about? So I said, man, there's this family. I explained to him the situation, and I said, they desperately need this washer and dryer. He said, well, come get them. And I said, awesome, I'll come up there tonight. Can I borrow your truck? Because I don't have a truck. And he said, sure. So I borrow his truck, load up the washer and dryer, and I say, hey, can you come with me? Because these things are heavy, and I need your help. And so he comes with me. And we go, and I take my wife, and we get to knock on this door, and we get to bring in a washer and dryer. These kids get to stay at home. They get to stay at school. They get to stay with their mama and with each other. It was the coolest story ever, and I thought it was over. But last year, we've kept in contact with this family, and last year this mama texted me, and she said, Mr. Adam, can you give me a call when you have a chance? I didn't mention, this mama is legally blind. She works from home at a call center, so the odds are stacked against her. She is a single parent doing the best she can, y'all. She had to make a decision with that washing machine, like, do I put food in the fridge and keep the electricity on, or do I buy a new washing machine? She's one of those people who had no contacts in her phone to pick up and call when she was in desperation. She put our contact, mine and my wife's contact. She sent me a text. She said, Mr. Adam, can you give me a call when you have a minute? And immediately, so I'm the care coordinator for our church as well. So anytime somebody calls the church, I'm the one that answers the phone. So automatically when she texts me, I start thinking, okay, you know, I know she's going to need something. So I start thinking in my head, like, how many resources do I know of? You know, I've got connections in Lewisburg and over in Chapel Hill and up in Columbia. Like, I'm starting to think of people that I can call and just making categories in my head. Okay, if it's a rent need, here's the people. If it's a clothing need, here's the people. If it's a furniture need, here's the people. And I call her and I said, hey, what's going on? And she said, I wanted to tell you that Michael made the football team. And I said, he did? And she said, yeah, he made the football team this year, and he gets his jersey next week. And he was so excited, and he remembers you talked to him about football when you were here. So he wanted me to call you and tell you that he made the football team. I jumped on the phone with him. I told him how proud of him I was. I got so excited with him. The next day I got a picture of him in his uniform with his football pads on. And that meant more to me than keeping the family together. You know, it means a lot when somebody calls you and you have resources and you're able to help them. But when somebody calls you to celebrate a win in their life, you're the only person they can think of that's going to celebrate alongside them, that's family, okay? I can call Goodwill if I have a need. I can call, you know, a hotline or a government agency if I have a need for something. But they're not going to celebrate a win with me like that. That's family, okay? That's community. And that's what CarePortal does, right? So that washing machine helped the family stay together. But that connection, that's a lifelong connection. That's something where now You know, if I see her number pop up on my phone, I know who that is. I have a relationship with her and her kids, and we're able to connect on such a deeper level than just I'm somebody who gave them stuff that one time. We paint an adequate picture for you. That's not every connection, okay? Sometimes it is. I dropped a bag off at the door, and I never heard from them again. That happens, right? But those connections, like that one, with that lady in my community whose son is a football star now, or at least he believes he is. That connection that I have means more to me, and I'll drop a bag off at 100 doors if I get one story like that one. So that's probably my most impactful CarePortal story. There's another really great one that comes from Thompson Station, Tennessee. This older lady has 4 teenage boys in her home. She's got 4 teenage boys placed in her home. And I don't know if you guys understand that that is so rare for people to take teenage boys from the foster care system into their home. This older lady had 4, none of them biologically related to each other. They're all in her house. They all call her grandma. She's been fostering kids for a very long time. I think the number of kids she's fostered is over 40 in her lifetime. And these 4 kids, their placement was going to be disrupted because she had roof damage, and it was deemed unsafe for the children to stay in the home. So these 4 boys were going to be displaced. The need goes into CarePortal for a roof. Her deductible was $4,000. That's a big request on CarePortal. That's not the norm. That's not typical. $4,000. Guys, 12 different churches came together. Individuals from these churches gave funding. One local church in Thompson Station, Tennessee, picks up the funding and pays the deductible so she can get a brand new roof on her house and those 4 boys can stay there. Okay? This lady had never been to their church before, but she goes now. And after going to that church, she runs into somebody that she knew from college. Okay? They went to college in a different state. That's just too odd not to be God, and that connection meant more for that woman than that roof probably did. That roof kept the family together, but the connection at that local church is going to last far longer than that roof will. That roof will rot and decay before this connection is done, living out its usefulness to this family for generations to come. So those are a couple of stories that come to mind when I think about the most impactful ones I've seen on CarePortal. And like I said, not every story is big, bright, and beautiful. Some of them are very short. But it reminds me of the story from the Bible where the good farmer went out to sow some seed. And some of it fell on rocks. Some of it was trampled underfoot. Some of it was eaten by birds. Some of it was choked out by weeds. But some of it took root. And the harvest that it grew is immeasurable, right? So reminds me of that story. We're just planting seeds. We're just going and meeting with people where they're at and serving them open-handedly, not expecting anything from them, not expecting them to show up on a Sunday morning at our church, not going and saying, hey, I did this for you. Now I need you to volunteer for VBS, right? That's too real. I'm sorry. That hit home for some of y'all. But we're not expecting anything from these families. We're going, we're being open-handed, and we're serving them in a real tangible way and offering them an intangible relationship so that they can be set up for success going forward. So that's really CarePortal in a nutshell, and that's the heart and the passion behind it. That's why we do what we do. I think that's why people step into ministry and into this space in the first place.